Okay, thank you all so much. We are ready to get started. We are ready to welcome Victor. Victor is a seasoned IT professional with a decade of experience. He knows what he's doing. He specializes in information technology. He holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from University of Lagos. Do we have anybody from University of Lagos here? Oh, let's hear it from University of Lagos. Along with a dual master's degree in information technology and intelligent computational system from prestigious universities, not one, in the UK. Returning to Nigeria post his study, Victor excelled as an SAP consultant at C2G Consulting before transitioning to roles as an audio developer and data analyst at Super Digital Highways. Currently, he serves as an audio specialist and manager at Champs Mobile Limited, developing the managing aspects of audio. Please let's give a warm welcome to Victor Ekueme. Please let's welcome Victor. That's not loud enough. We don't stop clapping until he gets here. I can't hear that. Okay, Tim. Thank you so much. My work here is done. I give you Victor Ekueme.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there anywhere I can rest my arm? Or? Okay, good morning. Hope you guys are having a very lovely conference. Yes? Okay. So today my topic, hello? Better? Okay, yeah, so my topic is on navigating the ever-evolving landscape of software development, MetaCareer insights, right, for the IT professional, okay? So basically, I know they've said something about my background. I have been into IT for a very, very long time. And as I said, I graduated from Unilag. I studied computer science and all of that. But then along the way, when I came back from the UK and started working for C2G Consulting, that's where I actually lost my vision, or like some of my vision. So from there, it's really, really been, quite a topsy-turvy, ride in the career space. But nonetheless, I still strive through. And along this talk, I'll be giving you some detailed information of how I navigated through the IT landscape, right? So next slide, please. So what I wanted to not give you pinpoint, like different technologies or techniques, but take a meta approach. When you hear about meta, you're really talking about, okay, when you say metadata, you're talking about data, right? So taking a meta approach whereby you're looking at not the data itself, but looking at what the data is talking about, right? So now taking not the career itself, or not what the career entails, but looking at some other parts of the career that you will need for navigating through that landscape, okay? So imagine you have like a diamond. Just imagine it, you have a diamond in your mind, and on the top of that diamond is your philosophy, right? So philosophy, for me, because of way I navigated through the landscape, philosophy actually was something I needed to have a right frame of mind, okay? And sometimes you get bogged down in any industry, especially in software development and IT, whereby you're not really, things are not going your way, you're not getting the right job, or you're not in the space you should be because of politics. But sometimes it's best you have the right philosophy in order to move forward. Okay? So on the right side of that diamond is discipline. And when you have the right discipline, you can actually excel in everything that you do. As we go on through the slides, you'll see where we talk about the priority matrix or priority table. And it's good to have discipline in order, or self-discipline in order to move forward. At the bottom of that diamond, you talk about having confidence or building character. In the career space, it's very good to have a lot of character, confidence in order to get where you need to get to attain the heights that you need to attain. On the left side of the diamond, we have legacy. Leaving a legacy um, after let's say, you've done 30, 40 years in a career and you want to leave some legacy, it's really important in the sense that, like, take for example, I teach blind people how to code and how to program in Python, for data analytics. You might wonder how I do that, but you can meet me later. But leaving a legacy, what do you want people to remember you by? So it's obviously not just about the code you're writing or about how you're navigating through your career, but also what you leave to the newcomers coming in, the rookies, the newbies coming into your company or something like that, right? And inside that diamond is health. Without health, I mean, you don't really have much of a career. Try as much as possible, to stay healthy, do the long walks, exercise, have that good, healthy environment that you can strive within your career. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so when you want to start, if you haven't done this before, when you want to start, the good thing that you have to do is to have what they call a vision and a mission within your career, okay? And so some people, if you haven't started already, whether you're doing NYSC and you want to have a good career, it's good to have a vision. Okay, this is at the end of my career. At the end of my career, this is where I want to go. Stephen Covey, in his book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, said that you start with the end in mind. That was the second habit. Start with the end in mind. And that's why it's very good to have a good vision. If you're in the mid-career, it's also good to have a vision as well. If you haven't had one right now, it's good to say, okay, where do I want to be? Do I want to be a software developer with networking? Do I want to be a software developer in terms of the security space, DevOps, wherever you want to be, data ops, wherever you want to be in the ML, data science, just have that vision of where you want to be. Okay, your mission. When we play games back in the day, you always have level 1, level 2, level 3. All right, have different missions, different milestones in order to where you want to go to. If you're starting out, you say, okay, let me first start getting a job. How do you get a job? Okay, let me look at, we'll get to that, but having different missions in order to get where you want to get to, knowing that your end goal is your end goal, basically. Okay, so if you're in your mid-career as well, you've learned the Python, you've learned the Django, you've learned some things, but you want to go into the higher echelons, right? So start looking at how you can, get into what you need to do to get into data architecture, software architecture, all those kind of things to keep you into that, going to the higher levels, okay? Or you might want to manage people. How do you manage people in order to try and see, okay, I want to start becoming a manager, a CTO. You will want to manage people in order to get where you need to get to, okay? Next slide, please. Okay, so after you've done your mission and you've done your vision, right, you now want to, prioritize your time, right? And this is the matrix I was talking about, the priority matrix. Now, time management is key. A lot of people have various problems with time, okay? You can see we get distracted, and because of our distractions, we procrastinate a lot. One thing I have an advantage of being visually impaired is that I don't get distracted too much because I'm always focused on what I'm doing. Well, people who are sighted actually have a lot of, oh, look at that new video, look at this, look at that, right? So distractions, decision, procrastination can hamper you in terms of your time management. Okay. Uh, Other things you can do in your priority, you have a priority matrix. So priority matrix is, I don't know whether you can see the priority matrix. Can you see the priority matrix? Okay, so you have what they call the urgency versus what? I, versus what? Yeah, importance. Yes, importance versus priority. Okay, and then you have things that are non-important and non-urgent. Things that are non-important, non-urgent, you can, uh, you know, you don't really need to do anything about that. It's not important and it's not urgent. Okay. Now, how about things that are urgent but not important? Right? What they say we should do? We should delegate, right? Exactly. We should delegate. So things that are important, um, so what I say, urgent but not important, right? Urgent and not important, exactly. So you delegate. Now, how about things that are urgent and important? You do them, you do it now, right? Now, how about things that are not important, important and not urgent, Abby? What should you do? Plan to work on it. Okay, so yes, so you have to plan to work on that. That is where building goals comes in. Why? Okay, so if you're obviously working and something is um, important but it's not urgent, you can actually put in your backlog if you're a software developer, right? But things that are important and urgent, you have to do it now, 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 now. Especially when you're a software developer and you're in a sprint. That's things that go into your sprint, right? Now, but that's in the work environment. When you're not doing things in a work environment, like reading books, when you have to read that book, okay, you've read that book on Python 3 for everybody, right? Now you want to read another book called Fluent Python, which will get you from beginner level to mid-level Python programming. Okay, you now talk about books like Fluent Python, Effective Python. Okay, you've read a Django to an extent. You've read your Flask. You've read different things. So how do you read books? How do you prioritize your time? And that is one key thing that you have to plan out. So in the next few slides, we're going to talk about planning. We've started talking about planning, which was our vision and mission and vision. You've mapped out your time. So when you're mapping out your time, right? I advise, like, so there was somebody I was mentoring. The guy was saying, "Oh, I want to read books from 3 to 3:30." No, 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 no. You're going to kill yourself, right? If you're very exact with your time, because a lot of things can happen, especially if you're married and you have a child and your baby is sick at this point in time, and you have to take the person to a hospital. You have to take your child to a hospital. Then that's a problem. You can't really push time like that. So what you can do is you can say, okay, I have 30 minutes to read. I'll block out, let's say 8 to 10, right? Or in the evening, I can block out, okay, 30 minutes in the evening between 5 to 7, right, to read a book. Or if evenings are too hectic for you, you can block out mornings. Okay, between 8 and 10, let me read this particular book. For me, I do it in the evenings, okay? Because I think I'm more productive after work and everything. So I do my own work in the evenings. So that's how I prioritize my time. Obviously, you have what you're going to do at work. You prioritize what you're going to do at work. If you have a day planner, you can prioritize that. But when you come home and you need to actually start reading some books, what you can do is that, okay, this book is, let's say, you're working for a company and you're earning like, let's say, $5,000 a month. You live in Nigeria. So you might want to read books on finances. Okay, how can I, apart from Python now, you might want to read books on finances. How am I going to manage my finances and all those kind of things? What you can do is, okay, you have a book that is, let's say, 400 pages, right, long. And then you can break that out into 12. If you want to read it for 6 months, break it out. Okay, 400 divided by 6. Okay, that's what is that? 8, no, that's 7. 56, 40, 56, 40, so that's 77.3. So 77 pages basically. 42, sorry. Oh, sorry. 6.8, Abby. Okay. All right, so 6.8, that's 68 pages actually. 68 pages per per month. So you can now break that down to days, weeks, and all of that. Now, there's some things you might not want to do every day. Like I do something called mind storming. So I do mind storming, let's say 4 times in a week: Mondays, Fridays, Saturday, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays. So you can block out days, right? Instead of doing it daily, you can block out some things which might be alternate days. Okay. So that's one thing about time management. Okay. Um, Next slide, please. So on goal settings, as I said before, things are um, I'm now confused. Urgent and not important. Right? That's where you now have to now plan your stuff out with your time. Okay? And then you have to have them in a smart way. Obviously, we've heard about SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic. It has to be realistic and time bound. Okay? If you say you want to do it, you have not done press ups for 6 months and you want to do press ups and you say you want to do 400 press ups tomorrow, that's not realistic, right? It's not realistic, okay? Or you have a Python book you want to read and you want to finish everything in 2 weeks. It's not realistic. So right, so it might be realistic for somebody who has read Python for a long time, right? But for you coming out, for no matter where your career is, you have to know what is realistic, okay? And I'll say, okay, you want to do this in, okay, I want to read this Python book in 6 months, right? Now, another thing you might have to notice is that when talking about being realistic, all right, when you're reading that finance book, right, or you're reading a novel, because it's not something you really want to get out of. So yes, you want to get something out of it, obviously, but your career is dependent on like software development, for example, right? And if your career is dependent on software development, you know that reading a Python book and delegating putting a time, assigning a time to it might not be the most reasonable thing because you want to get the best out of it, okay? You're talking about, let's say, threading, you're talking about different things, and you can't put a time to threading, but you want to get the best out of it. So you might, in that kind of book, your goal might be, okay, let me get this topic by topic rather than the time I'm used to finish this book. Unlike a novel, you can say, okay, I want to finish this novel in like 6 weeks, right? That kind of thing. So know what your goal is. It the task or the length of time? Okay. Also, when you're learning new stuff, you can come from conferences like we're having here. You can also let that be part of your goals. You can also say you want to go to Udemy, for example, get courses on Udemy. Try and immerse yourself with different materials in order for you to move forward in your career. Like if I said before, if you're trying to move from mid-level to a higher level, like a CTO, you might want to do more things like go for an MBA, so that you can know how to manage people, how to be more productive with money, financial literacy, all those kind of things. Okay, so that's one thing about SMART goals and having goals in general. Okay, so goals is very, very handy because you can track your goal. Okay, you can track your goal. You can know where you're going to, how long you've been on that goal, how well you're doing, and whether it's a realistic goal, as I said. Okay, because when you do something when you set a goal for 3 months, and 3 months you're not even halfway through the goal, then you didn't set a realistic goal. So because you have an unrealistic timeline. So sometimes you say, "Oh, I didn't set the goal. I've pushed right." No, you set a wrong time for that goal. So if you set an unrealistic time, just push the time a bit for where you feel that it's more realistic. Okay. Next slide, please. So when you've set the goal, right, and you've at the end of the day, after you've broken down your goals into days, weeks, right? So what I do is that I set out the goal for the year. Okay, so let's say I want to read 12 books a year, so that's one book a month. So that's for non-programming books, right? For other books, for programming books, I might say I want to read 2 Python books per month or 2 software development books per month, right? Okay. Now, per year, right? So if I do that, I break it down into 6 months into quarters. Then from quarters, I break it down into months. From months, I break it down into weeks. And from weeks, I break it down into days. Now, at the end of the day, I can now journal and say, okay, this is what I've done at the end of the day. Okay, I had 13 things I wanted to do. I did six. Okay, then you can now tell yourself, I did 6 out of 13. Why? What happened? Was it that I didn't have enough time? Was it that, other things from work bogged me down? As software developers, you have to work. There might be some things that are that will cause priority, and then you have to leave what you're doing, leave all the other goals. And so if that happens, it's fine. No need to beat yourself up, but just try as much as possible to be consistent, right, with your journaling and your goal setting, okay, and reflect on what you have done. That's where the question of why comes in. Reflecting. Another thing I want to say is when you're tracking your time, uh, a, another thing you can track are your achievements, your money, and your time. Okay, when you're tracking it. So apart from tracking your time, always track your achievements, because sometimes your boss will not know what you have done, even if there's ClickUp or Jira. They'll still ask you, what have you done, right? So, but if you have done your time, if you've tracked what you've done, all your achievements, you can say this: I've done this on this day, I did this on this day, I did this on that day. Then your boss has nothing to tell you, right? So depending on who your boss is, right? Okay, so that's one thing you can do. Always track your time, always track your money, always track your achievements, right? Especially when you're changing jobs. When you're changing jobs and they want to ask you, okay, what have you done? You can always put up all the things you've done, okay? Yeah. So next slide, please. Okay, so attitude. I remember so I'm using myself an example, when I lost my vision and it felt like the whole world was crashing before my eyes, literally. and I didn't know what to do. I went into depression. Seriously. But there was a turning point in my life where I told myself that, okay, so at this point my mom passed away, and I think that was a turning point in my life, really. But then I now told myself, I'll never allow this eyesight get to me. I'll never allow this eyesight be a problem for me, right? And so I changed my attitude there. That was the turning point for me, where I changed my attitude. If it meant for me to read those books, I'll pay for someone to read those books, right? So I paid someone to read those books, 30 minutes every day. The person comes to my house, one of my neighbors, from 7 to 7:30 to read those books for me. From there, one of my interns, some people know him, Bright, he was here in last PyCon. He actually told me about screen readers. So I now started getting into screen readers. That's how my IT career I've just picked up all over again, right? Because I could now go into do things I couldn't do myself. I found out that using the command line rather than using some like Windows as too visual helped me a lot, because on Ubuntu, like Linux, where Python comes for free, which I like, is that you can actually do everything on the command line. Well, most things, basically. You can do most things on the command line without 70 to 80% of, you can do everything without the help of someone with you. Another thing I noticed that, okay, that 70% of all servers in the world today, or cloud servers, are built on Linux, right? So I can just hop onto the command line, SSH into it, and do anything I want to do, okay? So that's one thing about having that right attitude, okay? And so I'm telling you this so that you can also have that right attitude, have the right philosophy, the right mindset in order for you to get to where you want to get to, okay? Having the right attitude, no matter how hard you are. Let's say you're a newbie, for example, and they've plunged you into a project that, okay, you have to now do some threading, or forking some processes and all of that, and you have to learn so many things that you have not learned before, and so you have to basically up your game. So sometimes having the right attitude will push you up. Or you're doing your master's program and your supervisor says, okay, this particular project, I want you to learn it, and I want you to submit it to me in 1 month, and you only have 1 month to do it. So having the right attitude instead of sulking or being sullen can help you move forward. Okay. Next slide, please. So alleviating stress. This is a big thing, especially for software developers. I personally do not do anything on Sunday. If you like, call me. I'll not do anything because I know what and people can attest is that I know what's happened. Except if it's really, 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 really critical, right? That's when I would do it. But as when people can attest is that there's something called burnout, and burnout is a real thing, Abby. Burnout is a real thing, right? Yes, it's a real thing. So one guy who was doing NYC called me up and said, "Oh, that how do I cope?" I said, "Cope with what?" He said, "That I'm fagged out." And I told him, "See, when it's 6 or 7, I don't look at anything work again. And then on Sundays, except it's high priority that the server is down, or can you boot the server back up, or something, or one code is not working, or it's we're in a project, we're in a sprints, and all of that. But there's some downtime you need to have that downtime because you have to have that balance. As when you're especially when you're dealing with a family and you're married and you have your wife, you have your children, or you have your spouse, you have a child, and all of that. So you have to now know how to deal with downtime and all of that. And burnout is a real thing, as I said before. So always try and manage the burnouts. Just try and manage, no matter as what point in your career you are, because as I said, remember that delegating, the higher ups will delegate work to you, right? And when they delegate work to you, and they'll be like, what happened to that work? What happened to that work? And you're like, sir, he's coming along, and then they're pushing more work, pushing more work, pushing more work. So you have to know how to manage your time. As I said, know how to have downtime, know how to say, okay, do you know what? I'll chunk out time from this time to this time to code, and then leave some time for my own mental health, right? Because you need that actually as programmers. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so job seeking. Okay, so you want to change jobs. Okay, if you're starting out, obviously, as I said before, Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. You're starting out. Okay, you want to get a job. First of all, you can look at the job, look at like 5 or 10 jobs, and say, okay, these jobs have so and so in common. Okay, let's say you're changing careers. Well, not really changing careers per se, but you're tired of software development, for example, and you want to go into DevOps, you want to go into data science and all of that, where the programming is there, but it's more statistical when you're talking about, data science and all those kind of things. You want to know, okay, what am I going to do here? What does the job say I need to do? So have like 10 jobs, look at the similarities, right? Look at the similarities and see, okay, this is what I need to get to, this is what I need to do. Then from there, you can start immersing yourself in those kind of jobs, in those kind of learning, right? Learn about statistical modeling if you're going to data science. If you're going to security, learn about different kind of penetration tests and stuff like that. If you're going into networking, you want to go into cloud engineering and stuff like that, you learn about Docker, Kubernetes, all those kind of technologies that you need to know, all those kind of things. And then from there, you go into things like, as I said before, Coursera, Udemy, all these kind of places in order to learn these things. Immerse yourself in books. I don't just do courses online. I also do books because I feel that books give you more examples compared to courses, right? Yes, courses are great, but books give you definitely a lot more examples. A lot of people don't like reading, but trust me, if you read, you know that there are a lot more examples that you can get from books rather than from online courses, okay? And then from there, you can now, once you have that in mind, you start applying, you've gotten your learnings, you can now start applying until you get that specific job. Now, getting a job is like a job in itself because you have to apply every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. You will get rejected. Yes, you will get rejected, but you still need to apply. And that's, you have to be like a robot, a machine, where it says, unfortunately, just drag it out. Unfortunately, unfortunately, that kind of thing. So you just have to be like a machine and keep on applying until you get it, right? Trust me, being visually impaired. Let me give you an example. So I am visually impaired on my CV. Nobody calls me. Nobody. I remove it from my CV. Now I get called. I go into the interview. Problem. Do you understand? I went to the interview because they see me with my stick and like, what is this guy going to do? I even currently work for an organization, Charms, for example. As I work for Charms, when I finally got the job, I started working for Charms, right? And all of that. So one guy in my organization came and said, how is he going to work? How is he going to work? How is he going to work? When he saw me typing and saw me do all this, he's like, oh, okay, this guy can work. Right? So, for me, it's a whole lot more. It's astronomically harder, right? So sometimes I have to now do other things in order to navigate my way through, right? So that's job. That's how you find jobs, basically. Don't be discouraged, as I said here. Don't be discouraged. It might be that you might not be doing the right thing, or you might be doing everything right. It's just the way life is. But just keep on applying. You get that job. Trust me. Okay. And the next slide is entrepreneurship. Now, sometimes you don't have the job, okay, and then you might say, okay, let me go into entrepreneurship, which is good. You have the skill sets, you can start your own company and go into entrepreneurship, which is fine, right? Another thing is that you might be at the end of your career. You have done your 40, 30 years of software development and all of that. And then you might want to say, okay, you want to start your own company, which is fine as well. Or you might be middle of your career and you don't like the remuneration package. You can also say you want to start. So it depends on you, on your journey as well. Or you can have a side hustle. As we all know, as we all do in Nigeria, we have a side hustle. Okay? So you have your side hustle or you've started your business. What I like about entrepreneurship is that you have partnerships, right? And partnerships are key. So take, for example, right? Half of us here are very good developers, but are bad in business. Abi? Some of us here are very good businessmen and women who are bad in developing, right? We know the rudiments of development, but that thing just to string it up together, is difficult. Then some of us are very good developers, everything. You go to a prospect, right? They say, okay, how much will it tell you to something that should be like $15,000? You say it's $2,000. That means you're not a good business, right? Right. So you might need to partner, where somebody who is a business person can see the value in what you've done and say, oh boy, this thing that you did, it's not $2,000. It's $15,000. Say, are you serious? Yes, so it's $15,000. So you have to okay, all right, let's partner together, right? And then the guy who is a businessman and who doesn't really know much and say, oh, you can meet the person and say, guy, I can do this, so let's partner together, right? And then you can start off different things. It can be a consulting company. It can be anything you want to start up. You can start up anything, right? Right. So that's how you navigate through, in my own way, how I've navigated through this IT space. I've taken a meta approach, as I said before. Conclusion, please. Sorry. I've taken a meta approach. I have not gone into details with tools and techniques. Trust me, there are lots of tools and techniques. And the better I take that meta approach, the better for you, so that you will understand how to navigate through this ever-evolving world. Life is worthwhile. Life is worthwhile when you learn, okay? Life is also worthwhile when you try, okay? You've learned, now you need to try. Life is also worthwhile when you stay, okay? You've tried it. Sometimes it's difficult, but you need to stay. And life is worthwhile when you care. Because by caring, you will stay, you will try, and you will learn. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Questions?
Very inspiring. Thank you, sir. So I love the individual advice that you gave on how we can take control of our own careers and build. I'm curious what your advice is in a community setting. How can people get together to help each other? I always think about how, co-professionals in the same boat can basically inspire each other and hold each other accountable. So I'm curious about what advice you would have in terms of, working with others together, I guess, to meet the standards that you have mentioned?
Okay, so working together, um, in every project, it's sorry. So in every as a career-driven person, networking is always key, right? You always want to network, like what we're doing here, how we have breakout sessions, but also where you have different social media groups like LinkedIn, it's also advisable to actually meet new people, try and set new groups where you can because at the networking events or places where you meet these people, you can actually come together and say, okay, you know I can do this. Hey, I can do that. Hey, I can do this. Okay. Now that you've done all of this, okay, now that you've come together, you can now say, okay, who is going to be the project manager? Who is going to be our scrum master? Who is going to be our database person? Who is going to be our back end? Who's going to be our front end? Right? And then you get your UI UX person. You get all these strengths, right? And form a group. Sometimes in forming a group, you don't want to be too top heavy. Um, so like in sports, especially like I'm 6'5", right? So I love basketball a lot, right? So where some teams are too top heavy, whereby the starting five are so good, but then their bench is useless, right? Same thing with football teams, where you have very good football teams, whereby the starting 11 is top notch, but as soon as they remove one guy and bring like two guys in, the whole thing has scattered. So you want something to have, you have to have that balance when you're developing a group, especially when you have communities like this. If you can, I know it's going to be difficult because we're all software developers, but if you can find something whereby, or a place whereby some people are, okay, yes, I'm good with Django, but I prefer the CSS parts and building having the Java JavaScript part. Another part might say, okay, yeah, I love the backend part, right? So you can build up something like that, have a group, build up communities like that, and then also, now that you've built it up, have a project in mind, right? Remember, begin with the end in mind. That's the first thing. Begin with the end in mind. This is what you want to do. This is what project you want to do. If you want to put this on GitHub, you can put it on GitHub. If you want to put it somewhere else, but at least have that project. If something you want to sell, you can sell it, right? Have that project, work towards it until you get to that goal. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
More questions? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. A round of applause for Victor, please.